Hey everybody, and welcome back to the board meeting. Today I'm going to be doing a top 10 list, and this is going to be a top 10 list of a mechanism that's very popular. This is worker placement. Worker placement games are one of the most popular, most well-liked mechanisms in all of board gaming. There is a ton of worker placement games in the top 100 on BGG actually. Now, this is one of my favorite mechanisms as well, and this is only going to be worker placement games, not dice worker placement games. And I wanted to have two separate lists for those because there's a ton of dice worker placement games that I like a lot as well, so I could do two lists for that. So for these worker placement games, if you don't know what a worker placement game is, worker placement is you are going to have a bunch of different workers at the start of the game, or depending on which game you're playing, and you are going to take those workers and put them out onto a spot, and that spot is going to give you some kind of action there. It's going to get you resources, going to let you do this, going to let you do that. But basically, you're putting them out on different spots and taking whatever that spot's action is. And there's a bunch of different variations and stuff like that, but that is the basic mechanism of worker placement games. So with that being said, let's just jump into the 10, starting with number 10. And number 10 is a older game, and I would say it is a classic gateway into worker placement games. This is Lords of Waterdeep. Lords of Waterdeep, like I said, it's a very classic game at this point. It's what, 10 years old now. It's a very simple game. If you were going to show someone what a worker placement game is, this is one of the better options, I think. This, along with Fallout Shelter, the board game, they're very simple games, very straightforward. In this game, you're going to be putting out workers on different spots, getting cubes, and there's going to be different colored cubes, and those cubes are supposed to represent like warriors and wizards and stuff like that, and you're going to be then gathering those up and then using those cubes or people as to send them out on quests and complete different quests, which are how you're going to generate points in this game. Highest point count wins the game. Like I said, it's pretty abstract actually when you think of it, but I think it's a great way to show people. It's very straightforward, and I have a ton of fun, especially if you throw in the expansions with it to make it a little more complex, but still very friendly, very family-friendly worker placement game. So number 10, Lords of Waterdeep. Let's go to number 9. Number 9 is the exact opposite of a family-friendly game. This is A Feast for Odin. Now, in this game, there are tons and tons of worker placement spots that you can go to. There's like 80 different spots. I don't know how many, but there is a ton of different spots. And you're going to get workers, place them out on these different spots and take those actions. And a lot of those actions are going to get you different things that you're going to fill up a different, like your map or your personal card, trying to fill that up with different polyomino shapes. But it's a very complex game. And I will say this is the game on this list, this is the one that I've played the least amount. I think I've played it 3 times. But it's very hard to get to the table. If I played it more, I think this might go up. It would probably be in the top 5 actually. But if you don't play it regularly, it's going to be hard to get to the table and remember all the rules. This is the biggest game on this list, and it's an Uwe Rosenberg game. And spoiler, this is my only Uwe Rosenberg game, which might upset some people, but it's my favorite out of his for his worker placement games. So, number 9, A Feast for Odin. Going to number 8. Number 8's a little bit of a lesser known game. This is Demon Worker. This is more of a card board game than an actual board game. All the places that you can go send your workers out to are just cards that you're going to place out. What's interesting about this one is you are going to hire a bunch of different workers throughout the game. And those workers are going to be demons, but they're going to have different things. They're specialized workers. They're going to have special abilities on each of them, which is the reason I really like this game, is you're hiring these different workers, and they themselves have a special, unique power. I really enjoy that part of this game. But it's very much a resource management game. You also have to, in order to use those workers and send them out, you actually have to pay those workers in order to send them out. Like, some workers are going to cost different things to send them out, but you might have to pay 2 food to send them out to this one place to do whatever that spot's action is. And I think that's interesting because it's very thematic. You know, you're paying the worker and then they go do whatever you're supposed to go do. That, and this game takes place in hell, you know, they're demon workers. It's funny that this mechanism of paying your workers isn't a very common thing, but a game that takes place in hell is the one that treats the workers the best. They pay the workers. I think that's kind of funny, but it works really good. And I love the unique special powers that you get with all these different workers that you can hire. So number 8, Demon Worker. Going to number 7. Number 7 is the second edition of a game. I've never played the first edition of it. This is Atlantis Rising. In this game, it is a cooperative push your luck worker placement game where the setting is the island of Atlantis, and it's slowly, and well, not really even slowly, it is sinking, and you are trying to go out and get these resources in order to build this I can't remember even what they call it, but it's basically this ship that transports you away and basically saves the civilization. And what is really interesting is, I mean, this island is made of these different like arms, and there's different spots, and you can place your worker wherever you want, and you can place it as far down those arms of that island as you want. But after you place those workers, and the further down you put them on those island, the better those actions are. But after you place those workers, you are going to reveal different cards, and that's going to tell you which parts of that island are going to sink. And if your worker is on those parts that are sinking, you lose those workers for that round, and they don't get to take an action. So it's very much you're chancing different things and gathering up those resources and stuff like that. There is some dice chucking in this game, so there is a bit of a luck factor in this game as well. But what I really, really like about this game is the different player powers. You get to each have this different player, this leader, and their leader ability is very, very strong in this game. And I love games that give you these abilities that are very strong. And this is one of those games. I really like that. So yeah, that is a number 7, Atlantis Rising. Going to number 6. Number 6 is one of my favorite looking games, one of my favorite board game covers. This is Rajas of the Ganges, and it's actually right here. In this game, you are going to be placing out your workers and doing different things. What I really like about this game is the resources that you're gathering in this game are dice, different colored, very colorful dice. And when you get those resources, you roll those dice, and you know, whatever they land on, that's your resources for that colored dice. And generally you want higher numbered dice, but if you get lower numbered dice, it's not the end of the world. You can do different things with them to kind of make up for it. There's things you're going to be able to do with them. I love this game, and it's got an interesting mechanism of you are going up 2 different tracks actually, and they're actually going opposite ways around the board, and eventually they're going to end up colliding, and that is how you're going to end the game. Whoever basically collides theirs and moves farther along the tracks is going to win. I really like this game, really like how it looks, and that never hurts a game. So number 6, Rajas of the Ganges. Going to number 5. Number 5 is another really good looking game, and it's another game right behind me. This is Everdell. This is a very cutesy looking game. It's an animal themed game, worker placement where you play out a year in this setting. And when I first played this game, you know, you can only place out, you know, you only get 2 workers, I think it is, to start the game, and you can only build so many cards. And when I was reading the rule book and playing my first game, I'm like, I can only build this many cards. that's never going to come into play because I'm never going to be able to build that many cards because I only have 2 workers. But you slowly get more workers as the game goes on. But there is so many, like, this does this, which generates this, and so you're going to get more and more resources. And eventually, at the end of the game, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get rid of some of these cards. I have to destroy some of these cards that I've built in order to get some better cards on there. So I think that's really interesting. It's a very surprising game how it ramps up like that. So number 5, Everdell. Going to number 4. Number 4 is a game I've talked about before plenty of times. This is Dune Imperium. Dune Imperium is definitely a mixed match of a bunch of different mechanisms. You know, you have your hand management, you have your worker placement, you have your area control, you have your deck building. But the hand management and worker placement game goes pretty much hand in hand in this one, because in order to go to the different worker spots that you need to send your workers out to, you are going to have to play one of your cards that has that location. And you're going to play those cards out, which means you're not going to get the end of the round bonus for those cards. So you're going to, it's a very interesting way in doing worker placement. And this game is always compared to Lost Ruins of Arnak. I like this one a little bit better, but they're both very good games. But I enjoy this one a little bit more. So number 4 was Dune Imperium. Let's go to number 3. Number 3 is a game that gets overlooked a lot. This is Lockup, a Role Player Tale. This is in that role player series of games, but this is the one that nobody seems to talk about. But it's my favorite out of all of those games so far in that series. This is a worker placement game where you get a bunch of tiles, and those tiles are going to have workers on them, and the workers have different numbers on them. Most of them have numbers on them. Some of them have different, like a symbol, which is a special ability that particular worker has. This is interesting because on your turn, you are going to place as many workers as you want on different spots, on a spot. And other people can put workers on that spot that you've gone to. And at the end of the round, whoever has the most power, the most, combined numbers on that particular spot gets to take that spot's best action. What is added interest in this is that some of your workers are going to be placed face down. So there's this bluffing sort of mechanism, or this unknown factor that comes into play in this game. This is it. Every time I play this game, I end up liking it more and more, and it's getting close to being possibly in my top 10 favorite games. I absolutely adore this game. So yeah, number 3, Lockup, a Role Player Tale. Let's go to number 2. Number 2 is a very, very popular game. This is Viticulture Essential Edition, and I really like the Tuscany expansion. Yeah, it's Tuscany expansion. In this game, you're managing a vineyard. And this is a very thematic game, and I don't drink, but I really like the theme in this game. It really comes out in this game. I mean, you're planting your vines, you are taking those off that and smashing the grapes, and then you are bottling them, and then you're finding someone to sell those to. And it's this interesting game that I really like solo, and I also really like it at, I think it plays up to 7, I want to say 6 or 7. It really plays well at those high player counts as well. It's really interesting because there's 4 seasons in it if you're playing with the expansion. And on your turn, you can either play one of your workers in the season you're in, or you can pass and save those workers for other seasons. And so you always have interesting choices to make for this game. And it's a very popular Stonemaier game, and I think for very good reason. Let us go to my number 1 worker placement game. It's a game I've talked about plenty on this channel. It's right over here. It is Architects of the West Kingdom. It's one of those Shem Phillips games in the West Kingdom series. It's the first of the West Kingdom games, the trilogy. It is a fun little fast-paced worker placement game where, unlike other worker placement games, you can go back to the spots that you've already visited. So you have workers, and I think you start with 20 different workers in this game. You can go back to the spots that you were before, and you want to go back to the spots that you were before that get those resources, because the more of those workers that you have on that spot, the better that action becomes for you. If you go to a spot that gives you wood one time, that gets you 1 wood. If you go back there and your worker's still there, you get 2 wood, and so on. It just keeps ramping up, and other people can see that your spot's getting better, and they can actually capture your workers, send them to jail. You can get them back pretty easily, so it's not that big of a take that mechanism. I really like this game. I like how fast-paced these turns are. Usually those turns are 20 seconds long, and I like how fast that game goes. I haven't played it for quite a while now. It's probably been 7 months since I've played this game, so I really needed to get to the table again. Especially I just got the Wonders expansion, the last expansion that came out. I haven't messed with it yet, so I definitely need to try that out. So that is my top 10. Let's get some honorable mentions, though, because there's a ton of worker placement games that I love. In fact, I could have probably made a top 40 worker placement game video, and been very comfortable with those suggestions of the games that I like, because I love a lot of worker placement games. It's one of my favorite mechanisms. But you know, the probably the 5 that missed out that were just in the top 15, I got the Raiders of North Sea, another Shem Phillips game, Champions of Midgard, Fallout Shelter, the board game, Rush MD, which is a real-time cooperative game, and the Manhattan Project. So yeah, there's 5 more that I really enjoy. But let me know in the comments below some of your favorite worker placement games, maybe some of the games that I've listed that you don't like, or maybe some that you really like. Either way, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe to see more weekly content from me, Shane, at the board meeting in the future. Hope you all have an amazing day. Take care, everyone.